Well, Collingwood has protected its MCG record against the West Coast Eagles, courtesy of a 19-point win on Saturday evening. I'm Michael Christian, and with me on the agenda is the Herald Sun's Jay Clark. Jay, there was plenty to like about the Magpies win, particularly the early form of Darcy Moore.
He was sensational, Chris. So we're going to talk about his rising star credentials very soon. But I just thought the big picture was really encouraging for Collingwood, because you go back to the bye, it hadn't been a great start to the season. They're 4-2 since then, and the two losses have come against North Melbourne and Adelaide, two finalists. So you've got to take your hat off. Do you know you've got to take your hat off to, Chriso? Nathan Buckley, the coach. Now, the Wolves are at the door after that loss to Melbourne, the Queen's birthday win. But since then, Buckley leadership, there's been a reset, and it's been a really strong month and a half, I must admit, Chris.
Including a couple of wins over top 8 teams, GWS and West Coast. So things have been on the up and up, and it was a great win against West Coast. We're going to talk in more detail about it in just a moment.
Well, the pressure,
but particularly in that final quarter when West Coast challenged and the boys were able to rally and get over the top. But let's focus on the star of the day. He was only on the ground for 34% of the game.
This is how good he is.
Went off at the 20-minute mark of the second quarter, but gee, wasn't he starring? He was coming of age, Jay.
I sort of thought he'd been okay this season, but this was absolutely the breakout game against a top-quality backline. Now, look at this high ball here. Oh, great grab, sitting on a couple of heads. Shannon Hurn is one of the toughest players in the league. He's a ball of muscle, and Moore has come down with the ball in hand. He was absolutely sensational. He's just sat on Sharrod Wellingham's head there like a star forward. Now he's just taking the PI55 out of Sharrod.
I think it's a P155, but anyway, keep going.
That's it. So he's kicked another goal, but he was absolutely on fire, Chris. So he played with a confidence and athleticism that we've just been looking forward to all season from this man. Then comes the hamstring injury. Pumped up for his team, but it took a bit of a readjustment. Now, Chriso, I know you've got a nice little property out there with plenty of horses. If he doesn't win the Rising Star nomination this week,
yeah.
What is the worst job on your property? Because I will come out there
there's some
do
pretty ordinary...
You got a hay shed?
Okay, well, no, I've got 10 water troughs to clean out, plus my tractor needs a good wash.
Right,
the old John Deere.
All right, that's not ideal.
That's the assignment.
It's pretty bad. if he, I don't know this, but if Darcy Moore doesn't get the Rising Star nomination, I'll come out there, bucket, sponge, and I'll clean all your tractors.
I can't wait. That'll be sensational. Well,
Please.
The problem was when he did go off the ground at the 20-minute mark of the second quarter, there was a few issues, and obviously from a structural standpoint, it didn't quite work. Jesse White and Travis Cloke then given the responsibility, but things didn't flow as well after he went off the ground.
There was definitely a readjustment, and it brought West Coast back into the game as they re-challenged in that third quarter. And looking forward to Richmond this weekend, Chriso, that's why I wonder whether they have to bring Cox in if Darcy Moore's not going to play, because maybe Nathan Buckley's preferred structure is that third tall forward here. Now, Crockett, was good to see the young bloke back in, long ball in, and this is where West Coast, they're very strong game in terms of McGovern and these guys intercepting and floating in. You see Shannon Hurn, Will Schofield was very good. So, and that was encouraging. You said that because West Coast came back in, but Collingwood were able to take over and take control in that last quarter. There was a big readjustment in this game.
Well, Mason Cox kicked 2 in the VFL.
Does he come straight back in?
Well, we know you love Big Cox. Do you think he'll be back?
I think he does for that structural. He's throwing me, Chris. So for that structural. That structural issue is important. You go, mate. Let's
move on. I think that's the best thing right now. And talk about the Eagles forwards, because early on, Jay, they were a menace. Now, they've got a couple of key forwards down there. Jack Darling for one, and of course, Josh Kennedy for another. And they looked to really rip the game up early, and there was some early caution and some early signs that, this could be a bad day for the Collingwood defence.
Well, for the past 2 or 3 years, Chris, we've been talking about this West Coast forward line as the best in the competition, really. Kennedy, Darling, LaCroix, we know how good these guys are. You see Marsh just a couple of steps behind Kennedy. He just works so hard. He runs so hard and kicks a goal there. So it was a really big challenge for the Collingwood backline boys. And, I sort of, this was a challenge, and they probably got on top for a little bit, but they did come back. But I mean, with the quality of these guys, they're always, they're a pretty tough forward line to stop all the time.
Absolutely they are, and certainly Collingwood defence ended up getting on top. And tell you what was a real highlight of the afternoon, the evening, was the tackles. Now, 118 tackles laid, the most ever by a Collingwood team since they've started counting records. 108 in the grand final back in 2011. This up to 118 and really set the tone.
Ferocious. And I thought there was a great balance to this Collingwood midfield performance because they beat West Coast in the centre clearances, smashed them actually, but then the defensive side of the game was there. And you can see here, I think it's Maynard and Ben Reid, a great tackle there. In swoops Marley Williams, fantastic. Another tackle here, Marsh Jeezy's quick. He's got some real toe, this fella. And Pendlebury, the captain, he was sensational. 13 tackles for Scotty Pendlebury, Chris. So you know what Trent Cotchin had? 0 for Richmond. He's been questioned for his leadership.
Two stories.
I mean, the two captains will collide on Friday night. It's going to be an absolutely massive game. People say that's a harsh comparison, but they're facts. Scotty Pendlebury, 13 tackles. Trent Cotchin, 0. And your boy, Rupert Wills.
Yes.
Debut, how did he go in the pub?
11 tackles, the most by any player on debut, quite incredible. Taylor Adams had 11 as well. Treloar laid 9 tackles, so it was a fantastic effort by the Magpies. And speaking of Rupert Wills, what a debut, 17 disposals, as we mentioned, 11 tackles. He's 191 centimetres, Jay. He's a big boy. He's a big unit, big-bodied midfielder. We know you like those as well.
We're going to hear from him very soon. I thought even earlier in the season he was a chance to play. His form in the VFL has been quite encouraging. He is a beast, as you said. He hunts the footy, hunts the man. And Collingwood VFL coach Dale Tapping is likening him to Patrick Cripps, who is the youngest man to 250 clearances in the AFL. So any comparison to Cripps is pretty solid. But should we hear from Wilsey?
We will, yes. He spoke with Collingwood media post-match.
Well, I just tried to sort of be really hard on at the stoppages, not let them get an easy run at it. It was pretty cool to get 12 tackles. And my mates don't think I'm a very good tackler, so hopefully that sort of proves them wrong. So, yeah, it's good. The difference is just a bit quicker, so you get the ball and someone's always on you. So, and I sort of like to think that my strength, my game is to be able to hold the tackle and absorb it and then give it off. End of 2014, I just sort of got invited down to the VFL list and VFL program and just tried to make that team, and then I was lucky enough to make that, and then played a couple of right games, and then lucky enough to get drafted, and then sort of just applied my trade this year, and was lucky enough to get a game today, and then sort of went from there. So it's pretty good.
He's a big boy, Chriso. You see those shoulders?
Yes.
He's ready.
He's ready to go.
He's ready, mate.
Yeah, it's a great story, no question. All right, let's move on. Now, one of the other areas of concern of Collingwood, now it's not just been on Saturday, Jay, but it's been a problem through the course of the year, is the opposition kick-ins. And on Saturday, West Coast kicked 3-1 from their kick-ins and going coast to coast. Obviously sped things up a little bit here, but it is a concern. The only positive out of it is that at different stages, West Coast had to do it in slow play. In the past, I reckon teams have been able to slice through really quickly. So at least you can see here, Collingwood holding gaff up on that occasion, but eventually they're able to get it through and score, which is a problem.
And it's hard to know for us just where the breakdown in that sort of zone is, but I think in all of these 3 kick-ins, there's been space on that sort of 30-metre first chip, if you know what I mean. So I would just wonder whether Nathan Buckley and his whiteboard this week just looks to tighten that up and maybe bring the kickers in. Maybe they're expecting them to go longer with the kicking, but just I saw on those 3, every time that 30 sort of metre kick on a 45-degree angle, White was the first one, gave him space. So I think that's an easy adjustment to make. But overall, Collingwood look to be playing more one-on-one defensively rather than the zone. So maybe there's some, it's hard to adjust from the kick-in zone and then you go one-on-one. Where's my man? So, that's a bit of a challenge for the defensive structure.
Let's talk about the Tigers. The Tigers are struggling at the moment. What a matchup it's going to be Friday night. And, of course, let's go back briefly to round 2, Jay.
It's Grundy! Grundy! Bruce said. Look at the boys go, jump on one another. That was round 2, one of the most exciting games of the season. And are the Tigers under some pressure? Front page, back page of the Herald Sun today. Brendan Gale on the radio, Damon Hardwick under the pump. They put up the white flag this weekend or last weekend against GWS, Chriso. What happens now? Are they a beaten, low confidence side, or do they come out breathing fire?
Well,
you know how the players' psyche works.
Look, they're at the lowest ebb for the season. They've had some tough games, but this is their lowest ebb. So if there's no fight now, there never will be. And that's the challenge, I reckon, for Collingwood, to match Richmond's intensity, because they'll come out breathing fire. One interesting stat, though, is that Collingwood ranks second for tackles. Richmond last, 18th.
But we've been talking about that for 5 years with these guys. That has always been their issue. There is no pressure. It's one-way footy. And as we talked about before with Collingwood, there was balance. They beat them in the centre square in the stoppages, but also laid a record amount of tackles. And it started with the skipper. Taylor Adams was brilliant at this. Adam Treloar had huge tackle numbers all year. Rupert Wills into the mix. Jack Crisp. Levi Greenwood. So Richmond can expect the heat, I reckon, this weekend.
Now, we've spoken obviously about the AFL Collingwood. What about Collingwood in the VFL? Absolutely on fire. 9 games in a row and up now into third position, 11-3. And with 4 games to go, it's all looking pretty good. And there's a number of stars that could easily be paying up. And for the first time, there looks to be a bit of depth in this Collingwood team. And another big win on the weekend against Geelong. And there's your man, Big Mason.
Big Mason.
Yep.
So he's had a couple of weeks off, been a little bit sore, Chriso, and Collingwood has nursed him back. There he is there again, featuring, providing a bit of a target. So this is a very encouraging sign, I think, Chriso. They've got the young guys playing the roles. Tuvey, Goldsack, bit of experience there. Oh, Big Mason!
Big cock.
Sorry, mate. He's pulled down another ripper.
And, of course, there's lots of players. There's Phillips, who we've seen play at AFL
Cafa
level. And, Adam Oxley as well, getting involved. So there's about 5 or 6 that have played a lot of senior football that at any moment could come back into this senior team and have an impact. So I think that's the real positive out of the VFL.
And the strong clubs, or the really good clubs over the past couple of years, have talked about how important this is to have your own VFL affiliate, train them up, play them up, get the roles you want them to play, so the transition to the AFL team is easier. That is a really encouraging sign. I noticed before, Chris, that Richmond's 12th on the VFL ladder.
Yeah.
Is that a bit harsh? Or
No, that's fact, isn't it?
We're playing this week, so we just need to...
There you go. Okay,
keep close
time
eye on the
now
Tigers.
for our Monday moments. What have you got for us?
I have got an absolute special for you, Chriso, this week, because Levi Greenwood continues to kick goals and be an absolute weapon up forward. Here's a bit of candy from Steel side bottom. High ball, who's that? Greenwood! I can't believe it. Look how high he's got on here. Did you know he could do that, Chriso?
No, I didn't.
That was outstanding. Look at the aerial tricks. Jeremy Howe walked over to him after that game and said, "Listen, Levi, leave that sort of stuff to me, mate. I'm full on the posters. You do the hard stuff inside the clinches." So well done, Levi. He's kicking goals, and now he's taking the screamers. So have you got a better one than that?
Well,
because I'll
look,
be surprised.
it's another mark, but in some ways it's a lot better. It's Travis Varco. It's a chest mark, but it is gutsy. You see the ball coming in, McGovern coming the other way. At no stage did Travis Varco take his eyes off the ball. You can see him there. Look at that. Bang! He took the hit. He was up, bounced up, was able to deliver into the forward line. McGovern went off the ground. That was gutsy, and that was my Monday moment.
That's a good one. Jeremy McGovern, not a small man.
No.
I know what I'd be
Big
doing
unit.
if he was running towards me like that. Be getting out of the way.
All right, mate. Well, that's it. Our time is done here. Now, big game Friday night.
Huge game.
Who
Huge
wins?
game.
Who wins?
Oh, I think Collingwood on form. Richmond, on paper at least, are a rabble at the minute. So it'll be interesting to see whether they come out and play their good footy or that white flag goes up again.
Get along to the MCG Friday night for the Magpies and the Tigers, and join us on Monday for another edition of The Agenda.